Welcome back to another video. In this video, I want to talk to you about some of my favorite TV shows and movies that are about teachers or at least involve teachers. So the first movie that I want to talk to you about is called Pay It Forward. This movie is about a middle school social studies teacher who creates an extra assignment for his students to create change in the world. One student in this class decides to create this Pay It Forward phenomenon that leads to the whole plot of the movie. The Pay It Forward concept is where you have to help 3 people in a way that is going to change their life. It cannot be something simple like paying for a coffee in the drive-thru for somebody behind you. I believe in the movie they say you have to do something for them that they are unable to do for themselves. So in the movie, the 3 things that the little boy does is take in a homeless person and feed him, clothe him, and try to get him back on track to living a normal life. Another person that he tries to help is actually his teacher, which we learn more about throughout the film. And so I don't spoil the whole film for you, I won't let you know the 3rd person he helps. But with the Pay It Forward concept, you help 3 people, then those 3 people help 3 more people, and it just keeps growing and expanding into 3, 9, 16.
I'm not really good at math, but it gets big really fast.
It just keeps going bigger and bigger until everybody is changing everybody's life. So this movie is very emotional and touching, and I think as a teacher I can relate to the teacher in this film because we always want to create a type of assignment that is going to really sit with our students and that is going to also go outside of the classroom. Oftentimes we talk about creating assignments that involve the community, so we try to do community newsletters where students create almost like newspapers for what is going on in the school or in their classroom and then send those out to families. So that's one way that we can involve our community, but another way would be to also bring those people into the classroom and having a community leader. Oh, hello, Mimi. We have a visitor today. Hi, baby. Okay, bye-bye. Another thing that we do in schools is called PBL, or project-based learning. So this is when students are creating a project themselves and are able to do something outside in the community and continue to learn outside of the classroom. This is not something that my school district does, so I don't know too much about it, but the assignment that the teacher gives the student in the film is one that is going to make a huge impact on the student as well as everyone else who is involved in the students' Pay It Forward concept. So I definitely rate this movie 10 out of 10. Although when the student does try to help the teacher, there are some things that might cross the line of like teacher-student relationships. So I think that I might just dock 1 point off of that, so I'd give the movie a 9 out of 10, but otherwise it is a great representation of the feelings that teachers have when they are trying to reach their students and create change in the world. Okay, boo-boo. The next movie I want to mention is Matilda. This is another old movie about a little girl who wants to learn so badly, but her parents don't really want to teach her and they don't really want to send her to school. She loves reading, but her parents insist on her watching TV. So Matilda asked them to send her to a boarding school in which she meets Miss Honey. Now, Miss Honey, I tell you, is the whole reason I became a teacher. From the first time that I watched this movie, Miss Honey was my ideal picture of what a teacher should be, should look like, should do, should treat her students. All of that was Miss Honey for me. So once I watched this movie and I saw her as a character, I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So Miss Honey's character specifically is very caring, and she's very encouraging toward her students. She teaches in an elementary school that is run by her aunt, I believe. I think Miss Trunchbull is her aunt, if I'm remembering correctly. And specifically, Miss Trunchbull, since I just mentioned her, is absolutely awful. She leads with corporal punishment and kind of also embarrasses the students and is everything you kind of don't want to see in an administrator or in a teacher. She is the absolute worst person that you could see in education.
Festering ball of pus!
And so Miss Honey is able to teach her students to stand up against a person like Miss Trunchbull by leading them and being an example in doing it herself. She is able to stand up for herself when her boss asks her to do something that is outrageous. And with Matilda coming to this school for the first time, being able to kind of see the strengths that Matilda has, she is really able to hone in on those and really truly just love Matilda as the student that she is. I think another reason I really related to Miss Honey was because at a young age I really looked like Matilda. I had that short bobbed haircut and the bangs, so I really saw myself in Matilda because I loved reading, although I struggled with it being an ESL student growing up and learning English. So having myself on television, seeing how teachers could treat me, I really wanted to kind of become that myself for any students that I would have in my classroom. So I think I'm going on and on about Miss Honey in this movie and I'm not making too much sense, but that is my favorite movie and I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. So I really hope if you haven't seen this movie that you do watch it and enjoy it as much as I did when I was young and even rewatching it now when I'm older. Let's see the next movie. The next movie I want to talk about is called Dead Poet Society. This movie is from the early 2000s, 90s, and it is a movie about a teacher named Mr. Keaton who goes to an all-boys school. At the all-boys school, their teaching style is very specific. They do the lecture style of teaching, which is where the teacher just stands up in front of the classroom and lectures the students. And Mr. Keating does not want to have any of that because he truly wants to inspire his students and he wants to make a change in them. So he works on changing the way the students are learning in his class, which ends up creating really strong relationships and bonds with the students. So we can really see that progression throughout the film as he really becomes close to a couple of students and really ends up changing their lives. One scene in particular that I love from this film is when Mr. Keaton talks to his students in front of a photo case where they're looking at pictures of, I don't know what this is called. They're looking at pictures of sports teams, and a subtitle for one of the pictures says Carpe Diem. And so he asks his students, what does the word Carpe Diem mean?
Carpe diem. That seize the day.
So as the students learn that Carpe Diem means to seize the day, to live your life to the fullest, he really tries to let his students know that that is the way that they need to take control of their own life. They need to seize the day because the day is not there for the dead, the day is there for the living, so we need to live it to the fullest. And I really love that teaching style and that mentality. So anytime I take one of those like BuzzFeed quizzes or some like random quiz online of like, what kind of teacher are you? Oftentimes I actually get Mr. Keating as the style of teacher that I am, and I really love him and his character because I feel like as an English teacher, and he as well is an English teacher, I can really relate to him because through my content that I teach, I feel like I can really emotionally get a better understanding of my students than some of my colleagues might. So I feel like I'm kind of like cheating there where I can create stronger relationships and bonds with my students because of my subject area. I definitely give this movie a 10 out of 10 because it shows a great picture of the relationships that teachers want to create with their students and the change that they want to see within the educational system. The next movie I'm talking about is called Freedom Writers. Now, if anybody ever asks you to recommend them a movie about teachers to watch, Freedom Writers is at the top of my list. This is one of the best movies out there that really shows what goes into the life of a teacher and what goes into being a teacher in school and at home. I think this movie does a great job of showing what it's like to be at home, especially when you have a significant other, when a lot of times our students become our kind of whole world, and we really want to really focus on being a good teacher. And with the new initiatives of personalized learning and teaching to each individual student, when you're a high school teacher and you have 130 students, that can be really difficult. Trying to finish work at school is actually a big challenge, so a lot of times we end up taking work home. This actually ends up leading to teacher burnout or conflicts with a significant other. So this movie does a great job in showing that. But what I also love about this movie is the teacher's ability to really engage her students. That is also another thing that we always struggle with, is sometimes we can create the most amazing, spectacular, wonderful, phenomenal lesson, and the students will not be engaged in it. Right now I'm teaching Romeo and Juliet, and it is something I am so strongly passionate about, and I love teaching Romeo and Juliet to my students. And so that is actually coming off really well on my students, because they can see how passionate I am about a text and they are really getting invested and involved in it. But that is not always the case, especially when it is a difficult topic. In the movie, the students read Anne Frank's diary and learn about the Holocaust, and that can be a really tough issue. I also have a unit where I talk about that. I also have a unit where we talk about the Holocaust as well as different genocides that happen, and I try to relate to the text as much as I can, since my country went through a genocide, and a lot of times my students fleeing from their own countries because of war or other conflicts are happening. What I really try to do with that is the cultural responsive teaching style. So I really try to identify my students' cultures, identify my students' struggles, and make sure that I am not just teaching them, but using them as tools to teach me and their classmates. So with the Freedom Writers, the teacher takes the Holocaust and what happened to Anne Frank, and she tries to connect it to the students by also asking them to write their own journals or their own diaries and talk about their struggles, because they might not be going through a Holocaust, but they are going through something else that is really significant to them. And I think that connection in the content that I teach, or any of the skills that I end up teaching my students, is that they can take anything in their lives and use it as a tool to kind of project themselves forward, whether that is emotionally, physically, academically, anything that they have, they can really take that and turn it into something amazing. And that's exactly what the teacher does in this film, which I think is another great film that I am going to give another 10 out of 10 to. It is absolutely perfect. The portrayal is wonderful of a teacher's life inside and outside of school, so that is definitely a movie that I also recommend. The next movie I want to talk about, or should I say rather the next show that I want to talk about, is called Mr. Iglesias. This is a show on Netflix that came out recently. There is only 3 parts to it, and I believe about 21 episodes at 30 minutes each. It is a phenomenal series, as Mr. Iglesias, or the comedian Fluffy, portrays the role of a teacher inside a school where he actually teaches a set of gifted students and some students that are at grade level or below. So he really has a wonderful class that is really mixed, and he does his best to make sure to teach to every single student, but also to really engage each student at their own level. So as I was mentioning earlier in the video, our jobs as teachers are really to cater to students with this personalized learning style. So we really want to make sure that students are able to make their own choices in education and in their own learning. But with personalized learning, we really also want to make sure that students are getting assignments that are on their grade level. So if that is their Lexile reading level or if that is the amount of work that they are getting. Even though the way I say that, we want to make sure that the students are getting an equal amount of work, but that it is also an equal amount of challenge to them, so that nobody is given extra work because they're smarter, or nobody's given less work because they're not at grade level. So each student is getting what they deserve. And in the show, Mr. Iglesias really does a great job of that, while also including his students' cultures, because there is a very diverse mix of students in his classroom, which is wonderful to see, because a lot of times with TV shows you'll see that there is only one set of students or one type of students, especially if it is the main clique or like the main group of students that are the main characters. In one of the honorable mentions, I'll mention specifically, I'm thinking of like Girl Meets World, where all the students are culturally the same. So having this diversity in the classroom is really refreshing to see. And I think the comedy that Mr. Iglesias brings into the classroom also really adds to what he is trying to teach his students. But I will say that there is also a refreshing example of the work relationships teachers have amongst each other, as well as with their principals or with their administration. So I think that the show really does a great job of showing both of what is the teacher's job inside the classroom, but also that a lot of times a teacher's job is also working with other teachers and administration. So it's that like best of both worlds, even though sometimes if we were just teaching, our lives would be so much easier instead of having to do all of the administrative stuff. But with Mr. Iglesias, I also give it a 10 out of 10. I just wish it was a lot longer, because 21 episodes, it is definitely not enough. Okay, I'm sorry if the lighting is shifting so much. I am losing daylight as I am filming this after school. The last show that I want to talk to you about is called Abbott Elementary. It is a brand new show that just came out this year. Currently, there are only 6 episodes out. They're all about 30 minutes each. I am obsessed with this show. It is absolutely funny in all of the right ways. The last few days when I'm having conversations with my friends and my teacher friends about this show, I am surprised to see that absolutely everybody loves it. A lot of times when there are teacher shows out there, my friends and I have this conversation of, does it actually represent like a teacher's life, or is it actually funny to people who are not teachers? Because is it a very niche comedy of it is the teacher struggle, it's the life that we're going through. So is the show actually funny, or is it only funny to teachers?
She never complains. What is your secret, Barb?
Knowing there's not much you can do, Ava.
So understanding.
And Abbott Elementary does that perfectly, so that people who are teachers absolutely love the show, but also people who are not teachers enjoy watching it as well. The amount of hype that this show is getting is well deserved, but I also think not enough. We should be talking about this show so much more. There is so much I want to say about it that I cannot fit into this video alone, but the things that Quinta is doing with this show, I really hope that it is extended to 5 seasons or even longer. I really believe that this show like should be the next like Parks and Rec, or like the next The Office, because it is absolutely hilarious. So enough of me talking about how funny it is. But the premise or the plot of this show follows these teachers in an underprivileged school in the south side of Philly. The teacher, specifically Quinta's character, is a second-year teacher who just got over her first year. And as a teacher, your first year of teaching is definitely going to be the hardest. For me, though, my first year of teaching was difficult, but my second year of teaching was so much harder. So I'm so happy that I got over that hump, because once you get into it and you learn all of the ropes and everything into your second year, you're kind of really fighting back with a lot of people and a lot of things. So getting into your third year, you finally realize what is in your control, whether that is the students, whether that is the administrative stuff. You really find out what you can do as a teacher, and the third year is, I think, the best year, and then so on as you become a master teacher. But I digress. Continuing to talk about what the show's about. So Quinta is a second-year teacher who goes into her classroom and she still is struggling. So she talks to another teacher who then becomes a mentor to her. And she really looks up to this teacher, and I think it is essential for every teacher or every person to just have somebody that you can look up to and you can go to whenever you have questions. So I love that the way that these teachers have a relationship amongst each other where they can learn from each other and teach each other, and it goes vice versa. So it's not just the veteran teacher teaching the new teacher, it goes back and forth when in a specific episode they are learning about technology. And it is hilarious to kind of think of when we as teachers get new supplies or we get something in the classroom that we're like ready to use, like new technology. With this digital age, we were using Teams to do all of our teaching, and with this 1 year of COVID, we had to become masters in this new technology just for the next year to not using technology, not having to use Teams at all, and just like having it completely taken away from us. And now it's like, what was the point of spending like months and months in the beginning of trying to learn all of these new tools to use when now we can't even use them? Our school had so many laptops where they gave them to students, and now that it is the next year, now they took back all of the laptops, and now we're expected to just teach the students in the classroom and not use that technology that we had the year prior. So I think that this show shows what happens in real life for a teacher and is a great example of what is going on behind for the teachers, specifically because it does not relate to what is happening to the students. It is hilarious and I love it. It is a 10 out of 10. I'm going to keep watching it. I really hope that you watch it as well and you let me know what you think about this show. I'm sorry if none of this made sense. I'm really excited about this and I really hope that you watch this show and you leave me some comments about it and we can start a dialogue. And if you would like to hear more thoughts about this show, I can definitely make a separate video, so let me know what you think about that. Let's go into the final thoughts. And to end this video, I do want to share some honorable mentions. Some movies and TV shows that I wasn't able to talk about in this video are Up Down Staircase, which is a movie set about in the 50s, and it is very similar to The Freedom Writers, where a young teacher comes into an underprivileged school and makes a great impact on the students' lives. A TV show, or I'll call this as a pair of TV shows, we have Boy Meets World / Girl Meets World. Although Girl Meets World does not have great ratings, I do really enjoy seeing Corey become a teacher and seeing him take the role of Mr. Feeney and still create life lessons for his daughter and her friends. And I do love that Mr. Feeney from the original Boy Meets World is included in there to kind of show that even we as teachers still need to look up to our mentors and ask them for advice often in our own lives and in our occupation. And then of course with Boy Meets World, Mr. Feeney is the perfect example of who I myself want to become as a teacher and the change that I would love to see come to my students as they grow older and go into the world. And I love that Mr. Feeney was able to stay with his students for a extended period of time, so he was really able to see the way they grow, just kind of similar to myself where I'm able to kind of see my students in 9th grade and watch them go all the way through 12th grade. So I still have an extended amount of time with them. Some more honorable mentions are not really teacher specific, but kind of have that teacher role. The first one is Coach Carter. Of course, with all of these movies that I'm mentioning, it's more so the feeling that we get as teachers, being able to see our students accomplish something and do something great with their life. Because teaching is not just about teaching content, it's really teaching about the person and trying to take this child that was given to us and then really kind of mold them and put them out into the world and see what kind of change and what kind of inspirations that they can create in their lives. And sometimes that is teaching through skills like writing essays and problem solving in mathematics. But all of those things that we do end up teaching, we're really trying to build those relationships, because without relationships, what is the point of teaching? So that is why I pick Coach Carter, as well as the Korean drama Weightlifting Fairy Kim Bok-joo, because the coaches in these films are really truly inspirational to their students. The last honorable mention I want to bring up is a movie from India called Madam Gita Rani. A student actually showed me this movie. She had watched it earlier and told me I needed to see it, and it is about a principal who comes into a school in India that has absolutely fallen off of any teaching standards. Nobody wants to go to this school. The teachers don't even want to teach there. So this principal comes in and is able to really change the students' view of school and even their teachers' view of their own profession. I really wanted to mention this movie in the honorable mentions. If there are any movies that I didn't mention in this video, please comment them below. And I really hope you enjoyed watching this video. See you in the next one. Bye, friends.